Hey world, it's Dave again. I'm just back from my trip to Kyoto where I visited one of my old friends, one of the guys who inspired me to come over here. And I can say that it was absolutely fantastic. Kyoto is a major cultural center because it used to be where their capital was. And Tokyo actually means Eastern Capital. That's the direct translation of that title as opposed to Kyoto, I believe used to be called Edo. But anyways, old capital, and so a great deal of history there. And if you're a history buff or otherwise, I think you would enjoy this city for a number of reasons. Um, One of the things noticeable immediately when I got there was in Japan you naturally have kind of smaller roads. It just makes sense for the types of vehicles that they have. It just makes sense with smaller people. I don't know. But I think you find one of these older cities where maybe it's a little more modern in a new city, in a new development, to give a little bit more space, just planning around that idea. But in an old city like Kyoto, you get these places where you can tell that this was here many hundreds of years ago and they've built up around that. And so narrowness is a fact of life. You didn't always have cars. Things are going to be a little bit more narrow. And since things are more narrow, this means that as you walk down the street in the city, that you get shops right next to you as you're walking down the street. You know, like hands distance away from you, you could reach out and touch whatever it is that they're selling. And this is really cool. I really like that because I found that even though you're in a city of millions and millions of people, that because of the proximity of the shops and that kind of vibrancy of people talking to you, saying "irashaimase," which means welcome, that you felt like you're in a bit of a small town atmosphere. It felt personal. It didn't feel like a big concrete jungle. And then I believe that they have zoning laws that prevent certain areas for skyrises, whatever, skyscrapers to be built up too far. And so you don't, you don't get this claustrophobia where not only do you have these little shops right next to you, but then when you look up, then you never see the sky anymore. You look up, you see the sky, you got the proximity of the people selling their wares, and it's really enjoyable. Really cool, vibrant lifestyle that you have there as a result. And you have different types of architecture as well, because like I say, it's a mix of old and new. It's been here for hundreds of years. It's an old city. And so you can have a place with a wooden door, and then next to that you can have the glass Lexus building or whatever it is. And it's a great blend where you can see, old meeting with new, like I like to say. So great culturally. Interesting to see that in somewhere like Canada, you might have on our streets, no skateboarding or no cycling or something like that. But here, because they still use the old method of rickshaw, where it's a hand-drawn cart with a little dude running you around wherever you need to go, that there are some streets that are rickshaw no. They've got signs up that say basically no bringing your rickshaws down here. But I never thought I'd see that in my life. So that was pretty cool. Something to think of again with this old architectural design. When you're putting up businesses, they might want to have that same building there. Business could change in it, but they want the same building because that building is so historical that you get this incredible use of space. Where it definitely doesn't look as pre-planned, let's put it that way. But then you find all these really inventive ways that people have ended up using the surroundings, usually for restaurants. You go into restaurants and you might find a chain here and there, but for the most part, they're all privately owned individual restaurants with far less of a design or format that they got to come in and create for how they were going to lay the restaurant out. They had to go into this old building, whatever it used to be, and then set things up accordingly. And it works, with where there's a will, there's a way. And a lot of places that seemed a little bit awkward, many of the people, the way that they designed them, really made them work and really made them have a real unique feel for them. A lot of them with great vantage points that you could look out over while you're eating your breakfast or whatever else it is, looking into the city. So lots of fun for the food, for the shops, for the design, the general design of the city. Really beautiful that they can keep some of their history, but keep moving forward as well. And like I say, it's a historical city, and so I wanted to do a few historical things. I wanted to shop as well and maybe grab a movie or whatever, but it would seem inappropriate to head out to Kyoto and then you don't check out any of the landmarks. And so I went to It's called Kyomizu, and Kyomizu is a pretty famous temple. And to approach Kyomizu, you're approaching the edge of the city. That's where this still remains, and it is beautiful. You know, you're walking along. The city is starting to fade away a little bit, and then you come. The temple is a little further up the side of the mountain, but at first you come to a very famous shrine, and the shrine is immediately surrounded by gardens. And so you're leaving the city, you're entering into this green space right away, and you enter through a shrine gate. And you're starting to feel a little bit of that history already at that point, because this has been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. And you progress, the gardens get more beautiful, they have ponds filled with koi. I saw one area where they actually have award-winning koi, where you've got these beautiful big golden koi fish and stuff. And you're seeing all the various tourist things that are going on. They're selling fortunes in some places. A cool characteristic of that is that when you have your fortune sold to you, if it's a negative one, you can get a bad fortune. I love how that's how real they are in Japan. They're not just going to give you a good fortune, just wax your ego. You might get one that says you're going to die soon. So what you can do with these is tie them to certain trees, because I was walking along and I was like, I know that that's not natural, all these pieces of paper on this tree. So you're to tie a negative fortune to some of the trees, and then that will get rid of the negative fortune for you. If only the rest of life were this easy. If we were having a bad day, you just write something on a piece of paper, you get rid of it on a tree, no problem. So progressing then, we're continuing away from the shrine entrance now, heading up towards the temple. Beautiful variety of trees. The whole of Japan is very unique for its flora, I guess, because it's tropical, but it's not super tropical. So you don't get it's not just all the broad leaf plants and, truly tropical trees. I find that they're actually almost more of a mix between tropical and coniferous, and very, very unique then because of that. It's not quite an evergreen, it's not quite a palm tree, it's something in between, and it's really, really beautiful. So we eventually get up the side of the mountain a little further, and the view is getting more and more beautiful behind us as we progress, because you're seeing more and more of the city. And we get up to Kyomizu, and you're struck immediately by the base at which the temple is built are these massive, huge or I should say beams that are constructed from trees. And definitely these trees could no longer be harvested. You would have had to have taken from some serious old growth to be able to get something of this size and erect your structure around it. So that is just cool in itself, very, very unique, something that can ever happen again, but they do retain it. And we go up into the temple, and for politeness sake, you take your shoes off, you walk through, and they have a few more artifacts within the temple that are little Buddhist statues and stuff like that, which are timeless. These are from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, so you get that feeling of history. And then once you've wandered through the temple, you come out onto this veranda that now you are so far up, the trees are many, many feet below you, and you look out at this incredible vantage point towards Kyoto. Now, I'm told that this area was much loved by the emperor's wife at that time, and she was considered a real saint to the people. After he died, she became a monk and looked after everyone really prodigiously. She was a wonderful person, basically. And having been told that and hearing a little bit of the history, I think maybe even whether you were told that or not, I just felt standing there that this may be a tourist spot, and there's people moving around you and everything like that, but you feel connected to whatever that real authentic history was that came before you. You felt like this vantage point was definitely where people talked about the state of an empire or had some philosophical debate, and I felt tapped into that. And I can say, if anyone were to go and you're afraid, all these places you go to are going to been there, done that, and it's just tons of people. It's not. They do retain some of that magic feeling of being tied into the past. And so a wonderful, wonderful place to go to. So a couple last kind of cool facts for that area is that this place is so well designed. It's something they try and keep in mind for any garden that they do with a temple they really care about, is that trees are planted with enough variety that through every season you will see different characteristics, different colors, some that, remain with their leaves or their whatever it is growing off them during the winter, and others that just change to incredible different colors. So it'd be great to go back to this place in all different seasons. And then finally, as we stood out looking out over this, I was told the story that, damn flies, I was told that if you were to make a wish, the legend was that you could leap from this, and if you survived when you hit the bottom, that you would have your wish granted to you. And they have records of the people who are actually managed to stay alive having done so. Although I think most of the people who managed to have their gift or wish granted to them, it was only usually that they wanted to eat food through a straw and be no longer able to walk. Aside from that, I don't know how many people were actually getting their wish granted. So following Kyomizu, after that wonderful experience, I went to the Imperial Palace, which is another major site, and very, very interesting in its own right. I would say Kyomizu, more fun, more interesting, but very, very cool to still visit, where in Vancouver, in Canada, and most places, you have great geographical complexity, however you want to call that, where there's no just flat gardens or anything like that. It's all up and down and all over the place. In the palace, incredible flatness and a great variety of trees, but you were more struck by the awesomeness of all these huge, huge pathways and the control of the environment that I guess you see as a result of this flatness. I feel like they flattened it all out, and that was almost another way to show the power that you had, was that you could so perfectly manipulate the environment around you as opposed to just being a part of it. The environment bowed to your will. It wasn't the other way around. And we came up to the Imperial Palace, which is only open 2 days of the year, so not the day that I was there. But it was fun talking to my friend, because I said, just like at Kyomizu, that I found it really, really profound to be at a place that had such old history. And I said to him, is this gateway that we're looking at here, is this the original? And he said, no, this is not the original. It's new, actually. But I had to say to him, well, when you say new, what does that mean? And he said, oh, it's probably about 400 or 500 years old. And so that really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Because even when it's new, it's about 400 years older than the country that I come from. So you get scale again, where you really see these people have been living here, developing history for a long time. And that's humbling, very, very humbling to experience. A last thing that I can share would be the gateways that you go through, or kind of a historical fun fact for them. The gateways have different roofs on top of them that you would walk under, and some of them, wherever you would have the royal family, these roofs would be made with not clay, but with cedar, and little strips of cedar that they place next to each other, and they layer, and it takes them months and months and months and months and months to build. And the reason for this was that you would not want to have someone, the imperial family, descended from heaven, they say, walking under something so lowly as mud or dirt. So whenever they had them walking underneath something like this, it had to be constructed from cedar, and makes for these really unique landmarks when you see them. And they're kind of interesting vibrancy, because they decay and they get, a green moss on them and stuff like that. They really look like they're alive. Interesting, the Emperor doesn't mind walking underneath moss, but not dirt. So that's the end of the video. That's my little trip through Kyoto. I could go on, but I don't like these things to get too lengthy. The songs I'm going to recommend are sort of reflective, get back on the horse songs, because I've been going through some things in the past couple days where reflecting myself, need a little bit of inspiration, and the songs will be Not Enough and Bring Back the Sun by Our Lady Peace. Fantastic songs. If you grew up in the 90s, then you can appreciate these guys. A little more popular in Canada than most places. They are Canadian, but if you're coming to them for the first time, great, great musicians, real, genuine artists. So there are those two. I will, as usual, post them in the bottom so you can grab those links. And aside from that, I always like to do a Japanese word, and the Japanese word will be okawari, which is refill. And this is very, very important if you're someone like myself, and you can imagine why. And okawari does not just have to be for your drink. It could be if you wanted any kind of a recharge, you know, for food most often, or whenever they have another round of something that you could grab. So there it is. Like I like to say, thanks for tripping with Dave, and I'll get some more videos up now that I've got the HD-ness, I got the better camera. I'm going to start to go into detail about teaching over here, the experience of that, getting the job, all those good things that I had promised when I first started to record my experience here. So thanks for tripping with Dave. Until we meet again, world, ciao for now.